Montessori Grandma. Episode 4: The Story of Language.
The Story of Language, the fourth of Dr. Maria Montessori's great lessons, retold and presented by Geeta Vijayachandran. I made this PowerPoint presentation of the story of language to help Montessori elementary teachers, traditional school educators, and children. I've used the AMI story as a guide and added on more facts that are suitable for older children. It is also called the story of communication. I have changed the title to The Story of Writing. Communication has been an essential part of our lives since the time man appeared on earth. It develops understanding among people. The evolution of communication is an ongoing process. With the advancement of modern technology, communication methods have been changing. Life would have been so hard without communication. Solving problems, writing, reading, understanding would be impossible without communication. We have been using different communication methods. These methods help us deliver almost everything. Now, let us listen to the story of writing, or the story of communication. The story of writing. In the beginning, language consisted of a disorganized set of signs that could have had different meanings to different human groups using them. Some of the oldest forms of human communication included talking and making sounds, drawing and painting, dancing and acting, and using symbols. Storytelling was used to pass on important information in the days before the existence of the written word. However, since man still lived in separate tribes, this information could not be applied outside one's own tribal community. Drums and smoke signals were also used by primitive man, but these were not the most practical means of communicating. Both methods could attract unwanted attention from enemy tribes and predatory animals. These methods were also difficult to standardize. So, when did writing begin? During the Stone Age, there was no writing. It was after man's appearance around the year 30,000 BCE that communication began to take on an intentional format. The most well-known form of primitive communication are cave paintings. Using symbols came as a natural development. These symbols are called hieroglyphs. Later, they used the stem of reeds as brush and wrote on the paper made from the stem of the papyrus plants using pigments. This method involved creating pigments made from the juice of fruits and berries, colored minerals, and animal blood. These pigments were then used to create pictures of primitive life on the cave walls. The next advancement in the history of communication came with the making of carvings on rock surfaces. These are called petroglyphs. It took about 20,000 years for Homo sapiens to move from the first cave paintings to the first petroglyphs. Petroglyphs are dated to approximately 10,000 to 12,000 years ago, that is, the Neolithic and late Upper Paleolithic periods. The next step in the evolution of communication was pictographs. Pictography is a form of proto-writing where ideas are transmitted through drawings. Pictograms were used by various ancient cultures all over the world since around 9000 BC. Simple pictures began to be used to label basic farm produce and became increasingly popular around 6000 to 5000 BC. The need for writing began about 6000 years ago when rulers and important people wanted to keep records. The earliest writing systems evolved independently and at roughly the same time in Egypt and Mesopotamia. The writing system called cuneiform, invented by the Sumerians, emerged in Mesopotamia, that is modern Iraq, around 3500 BCE. Cuneiform was written using flattened clay and a stylus that is made from a piece of reed. By pressing the straight edge of the stylus into the clay, vertical and horizontal wedges are made. When the corner of the stylus is pressed on the clay, a little arrowhead mark is made. There are more than 600 cuneiform signs, and all of them are made from these three marks. Look at this picture. We can see how pictograms changed cuneiform writing. Here, we can see how Babylonian writing came. The Egyptian hieroglyphs appeared in Egypt about 3100 BC and was written from right to left, left to right, or from top to bottom. Like the Sumerians, the Egyptian scribes began using pictograms and then moved on to use phonograms, that is sound signs, and ideograms, that is a signs for ideas. You can see some Egyptian letters here. These symbols made way for our alphabet. The Ox and the House is a Montessori story that addresses the development of our alphabet. The first letter of the Egyptian alphabet was Aleph or Aleph. The earliest letter was actually a pictograph shaped like the head of an ox. This eventually led to the Greek letter Alpha and to a present letter A. This accounts for the ox in the title of the story. The next symbol came to be defined as house. The word house in the title comes from the second letter of early Semitic alphabets, which is Bet or Beth, meaning house. This early letter evolved into the Greek letter beta and is now a letter B. This accounts for the house in the title of the story. It's true, the ox Aleph and the house Beth have changed a lot over thousands of years, but finally they were renamed by the Greeks as Alpha and Beta. These two words, Aleph and Beth, together make the word alphabet or alphabet. The ox and the house became A and B, the first two letters of the English alphabet. But how did writing start? Did it develop out of cuneiform and hieroglyph writing? No one really knows. The oldest alphabetic writing appeared in Ugarit, that is in northern Syria, in about 1400 BC. Someone had the idea of making up 30 easy-to-learn cuneiform signs to stand for the sounds that they needed to write their language. This came to be called the Ugaritic cuneiform alphabet. Did the Ugaritic cuneiform alphabet last? No. This language died out about 1200 BC. The Egyptian alphabet inspired the Phoenicians to invent their own alphabet, and so another alphabet appeared in Phoenicia. They had the idea to use pictographs for single phonemes. It had 22 letters, almost all consonants. You can see the Phoenician alphabet. These are hand-drawn characters. The Phoenicians were merchants who kept traveling to the Mediterranean countries. They carried the alphabets with them, and so it spread across the Mediterranean. It was easier to use than any of the earlier writing systems. Next came the Greeks. The ancient Greeks with whom the Phoenicians traded began to copy it. They started to add vowels to the new alphabet. The ancient Greek alphabet had 24 letters. The Greeks passed their system to the Romans. The Romans gave their letters a very precise form so they could chisel the letters into stone. Our capital letters are very similar to the Roman letters. Let's look at how the letters changed over time. So from left to right, you can see how we have raised from our letters of the alphabet. The Romans spread it in Western Europe, from where the alphabet traveled to the Americas and many other places in the world. So we can say that the Egyptian writing system is an ancestor of the Arabic, Hebrew, and Cyrillic alphabets, among others. And today we have the English alphabet. We have to thank the people before us for giving us a language, both spoken and written. What medium was used to write? Parchment and papyrus were used to write on. The late Roman and early medieval periods saw the copying of texts move from a secular professional scribe to a monastic scribe. Pens were made of cane, reed, bird quill, and metal. A section of reed or cane was easy to work into a pen. The hollow created by removing the pith held the ink, which flowed through the slit to the tip of the pen. Quill pen was made in the same way using a feather from a crow, a peacock, an eagle, or another bird. Often the feathers were removed from the quill, leaving just the hollow, stick-like portion to serve as a pen. A quill pen was lighter and more flexible than a reed or cane pen. Both Egyptians and Romans are known to have used metal pens, some of which were shaped to imitate bird feathers. Medieval monks used fine pointed metal pens to trace the lines on parchment. In medieval times, monks wrote with quills on parchment. The parchment was made from pigskin. The monks invented small letters so writing could be faster. Medieval ink was typically charcoal-based and gum was added as an adhesive. Black was the color of choice. Red was employed for embellishments and corrections. The first letter of each paragraph was decorated. Around the year 1500, Johannes Gutenberg invented the art of printing. He arranged metal letters on a board called a template and then put this in a press and was able to print many identical copies. Today, everything is printed digitally. Digital printing doesn't use plates the way offset does, but instead uses options such as toner, like in laser printers, or larger printers that do use liquid ink. Today, we have so many printed materials around us. We're able to write, read, and speak so many languages, all thanks to those people who came before us and gave us our alphabet. That takes us to the end of the story of writing. Coming next is the fifth main Montessori story, the story of numbers. Thank you. This is Geeta Vijaychandran signing off.
Montessori Grandma.